Hello, today we are going to learn about the elliptical marquee tool and the rectangular marquee tool. They are located on the toolbar over here. See the little rectangle icon made out of dotted lines? That's called the rectangular marquee tool. And if I click and hold, I'll see all of the tools sort of nested in one location. That's where you'll find the elliptical marquee tool for making ovals and circle and ellipses selections. You'll also see single row and single column. Those are for pretty specialized uses, so we're not going to go into that today. So I'll start off with my rectangle. Notice if I click and drag, I can make any kind of rectangle shape that I want. If I hold down the Shift key, it will keep it proportional into a square, a perfect square. So I will do that. Now, the other thing we need to pay close attention to in this tutorial is the layers palette down here. And this little plus in the square icon down here, that's to add a new layer. So I'm going to click on that and you'll notice we have our background layer and then we have layer 1. And let's see, I want to make sure that that selection is on layer 1, and it might not be actually. I'm going to use my move tool. I'm going to click and drag. Oops, right. So it's saying it's empty because I'm on layer 1 and the selection is on the background layer. So I want to show you what happens when I go to the background layer and I use my move tool to move this rectangle. It actually sort of cuts it out and I can move it around. That can be extremely useful, but that's not what we want to do right now. So here's another very useful tool, is the history panel. See this little like 3 squares and a little arrow here. And as I hover it says history. I'm going to click on this. I'm actually going to go back to the beginning. I can click anywhere forward and back in all the steps that I've done in this tutorial, and that's super, super useful. I'm going to go back to the beginning. If I click on this top one, then it's just sort of like reset. Okay, so we've learned about the history panel. We've learned about being able to move selections around, but this is what I really want to do. Is I want to make the new layer first and then use my rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to hold down the Shift key to keep it proportional. And now I'm on layer 1 and the selection is on layer 1, and I'm going to go to Edit, Fill. Now notice my cursor has turned into a little eyedropper. If I click on this, notice that the foreground color, which is right down here, changes to whatever color I am clicking on. So I can pick up some lavender, I can pick up some green, can pick up some orange. I'm going to pick up some lavender from one of the plants down below and find a nice sort of nice purple there. And I'm going to notice this says contents, fill foreground color. So this is the foreground color, that lavender. I could also, just so you know how this works, you can fill it with black, white, gray, patterns, all kinds of things. We're going to go with the foreground color because I've selected that custom purple from the other part of the photograph. Click OK. And now you can see I have a purple square. I'm going to go to the opacity down here, and I can move this slider, and as I move it and let go, you can see how that lavender square gets more and more transparent or less opaque. So sort of get it to sort of a medium, somewhere where you can still see the photograph below, but you can also see a little bit of the lavender. Now, you're going to want to get rid of this selection, this rectangular selection here. You can go up to Select to deselect. Notice the shortcut, which is a Command D or an Option D. I want you to kind of memorize that for this tutorial because we'll be using that a lot. So Select, Deselect, which is a Command D. All right, so now I have one lavender square. I want to duplicate this, and I can do this by taking the layer 1 and clicking and dragging it down to the new layer icon. But what that does is it duplicates the layer. See, now I have 2 lavender squares. I'm going to use my move tool, and I can move one of those on top of the other. And let's see, I'm going to make one more lavender square, but a little bit smaller. I'll do like a small square within those. Oops, and I forgot to make it on the new layer, so let's make sure that I'm on the second layer. I have that selection, Edit, Fill, foreground color. I still want that lavender, so we'll go like that. Do that. Now let's play around a little bit. Oh, I'm going to deselect, Command D or Option Control D to deselect. Now I'm going to click and grab the elliptical marquee tool, and it works the same way. I can do lots of different shapes of ellipses, and if I hold down the shift key, I can get a perfect circle. So I'm going to do that. Need to make a new layer. Make sure you're making a new layer each time. Going to, can I move? Oops, nope, I made it on that first layer again. So I'm going to Command D for deselect, make sure I'm on layer 3, then make that circle. You might find yourself making that same mistake, no big deal. Okay, and then we will edit fill. This time I want to take some of the orange from up this part of this photo and change the opacity down a little bit. And I will duplicate that by dragging layer 3 to the new layer icon, going to my move tool. And then I can sort of make multiple patterns down here. Be kind of fun. Maybe I'll make one off to the edge over here. Now you can overlap them and you can see how you can sort of play with the opacity that way. But what I want you to do is to have some transparent rectangles or squares in your photo filled with a color, and I want you to have some circles or ellipses shapes filled with a color and change the opacity. Just have fun. Make a fun geometric pattern over the top of your photograph and then turn it in. So as a reminder, you can go to File, Save As, save a copy if you want to turn it in right away. If you want to keep it as Photoshop, that's great, so you can go back and edit it later. If we save it as a copy and save it as a JPEG, that will flatten the layers, which is what I want to do now. Save it, and you can turn it into Google Classroom that way.